Hello and welcome to the aForm Show, the premier podcast for all things architecture and design across the MENA region. Welcome to your tribe. Today's episode is supported by SkyStruct, the groundbreaking construction and project management solution that's absolutely turning heads in the industry. They are bringing together architects, engineers, project managers, procurement, and essentially any stakeholder onto one singular platform. Yes, clients are included. SkyStruct is genuinely changing the game. Its tailored modules for construction management, inventory, labor, cost management helps streamline the chaos of construction projects. They are rolling out very soon in Dubai, but you as the listener can get in early. Drop us an email at hello@aform.studio and find out how SkyStruct is the future, and it is here today. Now, let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome to the show. Today we are joined by Kourosh Salehi, architect, urbanist, educator, and design director at LWK & Partners. His artistic background allows him to strike a perfect balance between art, architecture, aesthetic, and function. The philosophies of contextual metabolism drives his design approach to be socially, economically, and ecologically sustainable. It is a genuine pleasure to have him on the show. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hi, Kourosh. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hi, good afternoon, Alan. Pleasure, and thank you for your invitation.
Right. So I have obviously been following the work that you've been doing along with LWK, and needless to say, quite inspiring.
Thank you.
So I kind of want to start at the beginning, so to speak, talking about architecture, generally speaking. I like to ask passionate architects like yourself, did architecture find you, or did you find architecture? How did that happen?
So thank you, first of all. Yes, you sort of mentioned the fact that I, as well as being an architect, I'm a practicing artist, a visual artist. I actually went to the art school. My life started as an artist, started training as an artist. I finished art school and was about to start my master's. And then I decided that I needed something more. In fact, it was one of the heads of school who said to me, what do you want to do? And I said, I just want to continue. And she said, I've seen your spatial expressions and so on. Have you any interest in architecture? And I did. And I actually, since a young kid, I wanted to be a filmmaker. Don't know why, but somehow I did want to. But part of that was because I was very much interested in spatial expressions. Again, as a child, you cannot verbalize it. It sort of doesn't come in a sort of a reason. But I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I wanted to sort of say things about space. Not as in space travel, but as in sort of the space that we occupy. So that led into obviously studying as a visual artist. And then I applied, I was in London, but I applied to a couple of schools of architecture in London and got in and started my training as an architect. Yeah.
Okay. So almost natural progression, I would say. Would that be a fair way to put it?
Yeah.
All right. Interesting. Okay. So obviously your work and your portfolio has spanned pretty much half the globe, I would think, at this point. And today when I was sitting in the LWK offices in Dubai, so I want to get your sense of Dubai as a city. Obviously a fairly new city in comparison to the world scale. And as such has probably had a bunch of growing pains in between. I want to get your opinion on the current urban fabric of Dubai. What do you think about it? Where do you think it could improve? And if you could, what would you want to change?
Wow. Dubai as a city, or as a sort of conceptual construct, if you like, has a lot of specific, I would say, or bespoke characteristics, which are very predominantly Dubai. And there are Dubai in a way that no other city has those characteristics. At least the persona it projects in parts can be very identifiable. Nevertheless, it has challenges. And those challenges are in part to do with a city that has grown very organically. I mean, It seems as if there was a vision, but I don't think even amongst the most ambitious,
yes,
amongst those who wanted Dubai to do well, they didn't think that it would grow so fast in such a short time. In that sense, you'll see that there is a certain sort of dominance of car culture, or the way that the road networks seem to define the well-being of the city. Again, as an urbanist, that shouts out a lot. I've been saying this since I arrived here, and again, as a practicing urbanist and an academic, I've been heard to sort of mention Sheikh Zayed Road. At some point, Sheikh Zayed Road would have been a road that was a sort of a spine of a vehicular spine or on the periphery of the city in parts, but it sort of ran through the city. But since it expanded to what is in parts about a 16-lane highway, and right at the heart of what is becoming a metropolis, that in itself creates issues, in a sense that it sort of bisects the city.
Almost fracturing it.
It does. It divides it in a way that crossing from one side to the other is a challenge.
Yeah.
And it requires a lot of effort and endeavors on behalf of the city fathers to actually create that connectivity. So the connectivity is becoming, it's not as seamless as it could have been. That's one of the challenges. But the whole, again, nature of having what is a sort of effectively a superhighway that actually by its definition attracts traffic at peak hours doesn't then lend itself to a city that should be at least predominantly about human habitation. Urbanists say that a place has to be livable. There needs to be an ease of movement. And superhighways, on one level, they might be interpreted as a means of fast movement. But when we're talking about center of dense population that cities are, they actually become a hindrance. So in that sense, I think that is an issue. I think we need to address it. And I think eventually it needs a magnificent sort of amount of resolve, if you like, to want to sort of mitigate the impact of a road system on the city. But I think there are efforts being made. There are sort of other road networks which are sort of pushed to the outskirts of the city in order to ease the pressure. But I think then we need some imaginative and some out-of-box thinking in creating a more habitable sort of environment. That is one aspect. Obviously, again, the energy that Dubai has, the diversity, and the fact that it embraces people of vision and allows them to grow. That is amazing, and that's something that I hope continues for many, many years and decades. So there are lots of positives about Dubai. But one other aspect, again, again as an urban designer, one other aspect is that, again, I've said this in a couple of platforms. I hope it doesn't get me into trouble, but Dubai lacks two things. One, we're supposed to be on, it's a coastal town, but we, as a citizen of Dubai, we are not reminded. We do not actually see the sea as such. The sea frontage becomes sort of built and overbuilt by hotels and other sort of exclusive building typologies. And you don't appreciate that you actually are on the coast. That level of, I think that we need to sort of, again, sort of see how that can be mitigated. And there could be solution for that aspect. But that's almost secondary compared to the fact that we need greater green spaces. Again, if you even compare Dubai with Abu Dhabi, and I know a lot of people don't want to do that, but you see that the green spaces in Abu Dhabi are much greater. And I know the setup, the whole economic setup of Dubai is different. But then there are a number of solutions that we can come up with where green spaces are not something that you experience once you're driving down a road at very high speed, i.e. they are not ornaments, visual sort of enhancements, but there are places that you can participate, cycle, play with your kid, do the sort of activities that are sort of pleasurable and to do with nature. I think bringing nature to the heart of the city on a large city scale. Again, I don't want to compare, but just to give you a visual sort of reference, just imagine of the Central Parks or Park of New York or even the Hyde Park of London or other parks within older cities where sort of large expanse of space and natural environment is dedicated to the city so the city can breathe. I think either we need to see the sea a lot more and feel it and participate democratically.
Yes.
You don't have to pay a vast sum of money to go and sit in a bar in a 5-star hotel.
Yeah.
But you as a citizen, it is there for you.
Yeah.
Or the green space, we need to provide that because I think we need to highlight this.
Yes.
Because Dubai is an amazing city. It's on a trajectory and we all wish it because we're all participating in that growth and we want to be part of that growth. But at the same time, we owe it to ourselves and to our city to then be sort of pointing out what can be done better.
Yep.
So these are two aspects that I think can improve the city.
I think you've touched upon quite a lot of things, which I completely agree with. Having been a designer that's, we spoke off air that I'm sort of born and raised here pretty much. So I do remember what you're talking about, wherein you could drive by, well, not Sheikh Zayed Road, but maybe Jumeirah Road or something, and the beach was right there. Mm-hmm. I share similar sentiments even with the creek, to be honest, because pretty much the same thing that's happening with the beach is now almost happening with the creek as well, especially the older parts of Dubai, wherein there's commercial development right up to the possible, shoring line, if you mean, which again causes this major divide. And I do see the city of Dubai, again, from an urban point of view, almost becoming these pockets. To an extent, one could say they even celebrate it by calling it, the city of this and healthcare city and academic city. And, these by design, almost these little pockets of islands, if you may, in this ocean of highways. So not to be all doom and gloom, but obviously there were incentives and obviously economics behind that vision. Having said that, now that we're here and this is what we have, in your mind as an urbanist, of course we can, look at parks, we can look at, newer areas and look how to do them better. But I'm curious about existing areas. What do you think can be done at a large scale, or can anything be done? Or should we look at, retrofitting buildings or looking at how urban, settings are reused or something like that?
I think there were a couple of questions there within one. I think what can we do? There's a lot we can do, first of all. I think you touched on the creek. Creek, to me, is perhaps one of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful spot in Dubai. The old part where the DAOs are,
Absolutely.
where the Al Khor development and near Bastakia and so on is. In fact, we've designed the bridge, pedestrian bridge, the sky bridge, and with the greenery for RTA about 4 or 5 years ago, which very much it becomes a destination bridge, and it's about celebrating the city, the view of the city, but also celebrating the outdoors mitigating the climatic sort of challenges by passively sort of cooling certain spots, creating shading, etc., etc. And that's very much because we believe that at the time when we were asked to design just a normal pedestrian bridge, we proposed that this is a magnificent opportunity to celebrate Dubai and all part of Dubai, and it needed to be a landmark and a destination rather than a point of transition from A to B. You would go to that place to meet and stay, have a coffee, and enjoy the city. And we proposed that to RTA, and they supported it. And His Highness also, I think, signed a decree as announcing that the bridge was, at least the idea was. But it was a project to be somehow completed.
Yeah.
Executed. I didn't want to use the word executed, but to be completed. Anyhow, there are opportunities to celebrate the real landmarks or the geographic sort of characteristics of the city in that sense. But as Dubai ages and buildings, we cannot continue sort of demolishing great big chunks of the city. Some of these buildings are barely 20, 30 years old. And what other cities do, they would take the buildings and retrofit them, maybe change the function. Previously, in that location, you needed more offices. Now you need more residential, or vice versa. You had, a few years back, there were sort of industrial or semi-industrial warehouses. Now you need offices and live work units. And rather than sort of demolish and build new, a lot of cities decide to actually retrofit. This way you sort of celebrate the memory of a city and also participate in its growth and its metamorphosis, you see. And that has it will then develop its own story, a narrative that is interesting, and the character and growth and the aging of an environment then is recorded and becomes the grain of the city. So in that sense, there are many reasons why that could be encouraged. Apart from that, buildings or the construction industry has over 34 to nearly 39% of carbon footprints. Just producing concrete in itself, right? It is
very energy efficient. I mean, the exact opposite of energy efficient, energy consuming.
It is. So for that reason, again, the building industry needs to be conscious of that fact, and rather than demolish, a 30-story tower. So that something slicker and taller could be built. There are many sort of opportunities to see how that tower could be adapted and reused in a more, again, both environmentally friendly, but also in terms of the story that it tells about the city itself.
Yes. I think you just touched upon something which is quite interesting, which was, demolishing an existing building and building something slicker and taller, which I feel has been the narrative for quite a while. That's sort of, what was wanted. I kind of want to ask you, it's a bit more of a philosophical question, I suppose, which is there's this whole, designing for fashion, almost designing for vanity, if you may, wherein it's not so much about problem solving, but it's more about, I want a Guinness record and I want a LEED certificate and I want this and I want that. And the actual end user is kind of like 7th, 8th on the priority list almost. And we see this happening quite often, unfortunately. So I want to get your opinion on that. I mean, I suppose if I had to frame it on within a question, I think it was put, I heard this quite recently, called skyline architecture. Architects designing for skylines. And, obviously there's a lot of vanity and ego that goes into something like that. But should that be an approach? Is that something that Dubai needs? Someone to actually curate something like this? Or do we need to be looking in another direction?
If I heard your question correctly, or if I understand it correctly, do we need more sort of so-called iconic buildings?
Yeah, I was trying very hard to not use that word, but yes, essentially.
It is become a cliche. In fact, from one of my last practices that I banned that word from the studio floor. So I asked the young architects to never use because it's misleading, but also it actually sort of doesn't result in too much. And I said, if every building in a city is iconic, then effectively, then nothing is iconic. So there's a challenge there, but I think Dubai has moved on from that, and I think let us not blame the architects. Architects are often responding to a brief, and it's those who commission buildings are usually seeking that some sort of a branding, or they're seeking some sort of accolade, and then they go to designers and engineers requesting that. But should Dubai move away from it? I honestly don't want to be prescriptive what Dubai should and shouldn't do. But there is, in the skyline of a city, there needs to be a harmony. Again, often I sort of just using the word harmony, I then compare it to an orchestra. If you've got a 50 band sort of instruments in an orchestra, and if every single instrument was going to play its own tune, you will have chaos.
Exactly.
And anything but harmony. There are cities, again, in the world, older cities, where they by actually planning regulations and planning laws, they actually try to create that synergy between buildings, so they don't all sort of play their own tune, because it actually creates a visual disturbance. And there are many cities in the world where there is harmony, yet buildings all have a subtle way of sort of expressing their own presence in a mature way. And conversely, there are cities in the world when that rule hasn't been applied, and it is a visual, visually disturbing experience.
Yes.
That skyline. What do we do with the skyline? Well, do as you please, I suppose. Be creative, be dynamic, be sort of responsive to the needs of the city and the brief. All of that, it's not about curtailing creativity. It's not about being prescriptive.
Yes.
About sort of what people shouldn't do. But then having that duty of care. People often talk about sustainability, and one of the cornerstones of sustainability is that sense of awareness of and duty of care towards your development, towards your city, towards your environment. Now, once you put all of that into the pot, the design that should sort of
generate out of it,
that comes out of it, then needs to be sort of responsive to the context. There was a time when the term contextual design was almost a swear word amongst commissioners of architecture. And dare I say, even by some architects, they would literally swear at you if you use the word context. Now that is not so much a swear word, but it's a need and it's a genuine desire on behalf of a lot of those people that do not see architecture or building as a standalone component of the city, but they see it as a contribution, being neighborly towards the immediate surrounding.
Yes.
It's just being respectful.
Yes.
So I think in many ways that mindset is about, being sustainable, being neighborly, and thinking about a collective rather than a singular.
Interesting. I'm always curious to speak to designers to kind of understand where where their thinking is at the moment when it comes to, even things like sustainability, for example. Recently, we were told that sustainability is now the new luxury almost, wherein it's less about, the obvious things like your solar panels and all of that, the technical side of it, but just, things like biophilic spaces and, hospitality offerings, which, offer a more sensory experience in that sort of way, being more aware of the assets that you have on your property and seeing how they can be used in a sustainable manner. Having said that, I want to maybe from your experience perhaps dig up, if you may, a project or a learning experience or anything of that nature where, in your opinion, that was a very creative approach to sustainability.
There's a project currently on site, the IFC, soon to be announced in the next few days. So hopefully by the time this podcast is out, it will be announced. It's not a spoiler alert. But a project that was initially an international competition run by the IFC. They invited sort of teams of designers and architects, and we were LWK. We were one of them. Fortunately, we won the competition and we were appointed as architects. And we've been working for just about over 2 years on it, and the project is currently on site. We're still working on it. And that was an interesting project in a sense that in the heart of Dubai financial district, where land is absolutely supreme premium, we were asked to look at creating a building which was mixed use. It has headquarters, offices, and so on. It had a residential component.
Right.
It needed some signature dining experience, just if you can imagine, as well as a conference facility like an events hall.
Yeah.
All of these are absolutely fine on their own, if you like. But then when you combine them on a tight site, that was an interesting brief. And then to add to the flavor, on the edge of Al Mustaqbal Street, where the site is, it's sort of offset from the podium, the Gate Avenue, which is about 16 meters above the street level. And then one of the brief requests was, how can we then create a connectivity between the existing Gate Avenue and the edge of the street? So with that in mind, again, what I said earlier on about the fact that Dubai could do with more green spaces, we created a connectivity, which is a series of levels, which are active podia that are sort of biophilic in a sense that there's greenery, there's a sort of, again, creating microclimatic sort of conditions where you actually extend the seasons, the outdoor seasons, because you have, active edges of cafes and so on. We've got an amphitheater where sort of music events or plays or performances could be held together with outdoor galleries, sort of moments. Now, that we could have only been done if we could then create an environment where the heat could be mitigated. And if you wanted to then go to the top of the Gate Avenue as a pedestrian, it needed to be an ease of movement, right. What we said earlier. For that, we proposed, and it's got accepted, and we evolved it as a design.
Yep.
It wasn't just about celebration of a tower, which in its own right is absolutely perfectly valid.
Correct.
But it was about an integration of a building, a complex building, which was interesting. It was, by the definition that the brief wanted, was a new landmark. But at the same time, it was, like we said, it was mindful of the context, both environmentally, but as well as from a sort of place of habitation for those who work there, but also those who live there. So I think it's difficult to explain a visual environment just with words, but this is one of the projects that again we are using at the moment in Dubai.
Yeah.
There are other projects that we're doing in the region, again, where we're using the very aspect of the environment,
right,
and integrating it with the built form, again, with particularly to create a sort of a marriage between the built environment and the natural setting.
Agreed. I think all of our listeners, if they're following along as you're sort of, painting this picture, I think all of us can kind of visualize almost what you're talking about. And it sounds awesome. I mean, I can't wait to see it at some point when
I could send you a video for your eyes only, not to share anyway.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Brings me to another question, which I'd love to get your opinion on. As a designer, if you were to get almost like a blank canvas, meaning open plot, open parcel, no highways, no, nothing, almost, I mean, literally like a blank canvas. And if you go the other extreme, which is super tight site, lot of infrastructure, lot of constraints, I guess the question is it easier with one or the other? Do both have pros and cons? Do you have a preference for either of them?
I don't, tell you the truth. I think because, like I said, I wear two hats, that of an urban designer and that of an architect. I particularly enjoy sort of complex city environments. I enjoy working with people and for people. I think there are a lot of challenges that we face in our daily lives. And if we create an environment that sort of somehow eases some of those sort of constraints, I think that then a job of a designer then at least partially is done. So for that reason, I don't shy away from complex scenarios. Having said that, again, a green land development also has its own challenges. Again, I'm profoundly supportive of the environment, the damage that the human activities just globally cause to nature, how we destroy the biodiversities, how the bugs, the insects, they're all part of a magic cycle. How the birds are sort of leaving their habitats, and other animals in a way, because we come and bully our way through and take over their spaces and their environment. That's something that I find deeply disturbing about my profession. So for that reason, again, whenever, and there's one particular project that we're doing at the moment in KSA, where the setting is farmland. And you'll see that at the reverse of what I've just said about city developments, where the big building needed to sort of announce its presence is happening. We're getting the nature to very much sort of
do that for it.
Do that and become the setting. And the buildings are very much playing second tune. And it took a long time to convince the client. And again, this was a competition that we won. And again, we won it on that very basis, that let the bigger attraction be the bird sounds that allow the greenery to sort of express itself. Let the farm, the aroma, the noise, the activities of a natural, of a working farm be the backdrop to your resort or your activity, and so on. And in that sense, we three or fourfold are improving the natural setting, biodiversity, and so on, and using the resources currently available within the site, and then getting the buildings to be subservient to that. And I think the experience is much more enhanced. Obviously the clients, it's sort of buying into it, and again, it's a project that is very much active. It's on our drawing boards, and it's working that way.
Nice. Again, sounds awesome. I mean, I can see myself kind of like walking through that project almost, and just audibly, walking through the project with you almost.
Okay.
Which is awesome. Kourosh, kind of as a closing tradition to the show, we have a question that's given by a previous guest for the guest forward.
Okay.
Not knowing who that might be.
Okay.
So we do have a question for you, and you can take your time to answer it. The question for you is, what is your favorite historic building?
Ouch.
And what is your favorite contemporary building?
Ouch.
Why so? And do they have anything in common? Oof. It's a bit of a heavy one. So
you can... it's the exact sort of question that I always avoid. Not because I don't want to get into trouble, but I when people ask me what is your favorite movie, I can never say, and I can never say what is my favorite food.
Is it more of an evolving process?
It is because I like food, as you could see.
Well, I think I like a lot of food.
But different moments and different times, different flavors and different sort of palates, sort of entice and excite and delight us. And that's the same with buildings and architecture. There are many genres of architecture that I like. In terms of historical buildings, I like gardens, and I particularly like buildings that are sort of embrace. Again, it's a marriage of sort of both convenience but also delight between the two, the built environment and the natural, albeit a curated setting. So I just say that because it's a building that I'm just communicating to my colleagues in Hong Kong who are doing the landscape portion of the project that I told you in KSA. And it's the Hammam theme in Kashan, which is sort of about 2 hours drive from Isfahan. It's a sort of like a museum, almost a living museum, but it was like a sort of almost like a resort, a couple of 100 years old. But the garden, the serenity of the garden, and the way the waters, fountains, and so on are so minimal and so beautifully sort of conceived, is that you see them in a lot of people's presentations, pictures of that. They don't ever refer to where it comes from or what it is, but that's the charm of it. It's almost like it has a timeless geometry, again, as an architect. And then it sort of blends seamlessly with the trees and the flowers and so on. So the experience is magical. So I think, again, there are hundreds of other buildings that I could think of.
Right.
Again, historical buildings, modern buildings. Believe it or not, let's stay close to home. I think Burj Khalifa is magnificent. I'm very proud as an architect to be sharing the space. Yes. In fact, from our window, we could, when it cleared there, we could see Burj Khalifa. So I think that's a very elegant. Again, as an architect, I feel proud, both as a citizen of Dubai, but also as an architect. Whenever I sort of show people the building, because it's a magnificent achievement of human endeavor, both in terms of engineering and aesthetic elegance. So yeah, that's a cool building.
Definitely, I share your sentiments for Burj Khalifa. Unfortunately, I'm quite ignorant on the historic building, but I will definitely find out. Kourosh, thank you so much for your time. This has been a very interesting episode for me.
Thank you.
And I'm sure for our listeners. And on behalf of the team, we'd like to thank you for coming on, and hopefully look to see you more on the show in the future.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. And for the rest of you guys, we will catch you guys next week. Fellow aFormer, thank you so much for your time. If this episode added any value to you, please share it with anyone who may benefit. If you want to carry on the discussion, please get in touch with us over socials. We are at aForm Show on the gram and hello@aForm.studio on email. That is at aForm Show on the gram and hello@aForm.studio on email. Until next time, stay inspired.